The Destruction of the Egyptians by Ginzberg. At the moment when the last of the Israelites stepped out of the bed of the sea, the first of the Egyptians set foot into it, but in the same instant the waters surged back into their wonted place, and all the Egyptians perished. But drowning was not the only punishment decreed upon them by God. He undertook a thoroughgoing campaign against them. When Pharaoh was preparing to persecute the Israelites, he asked his army which of the saddle beasts was the swiftest runner, that one he would use, and they said, "There is none swifter than thy piebald mare, whose like is to be found nowhere in the world." Accordingly, Pharaoh mounted the mare, and pursued after the Israelites seaward, and while Pharaoh was inquiring of his army as to the swiftest animal to mount, God was questioning the angels as to the swiftest creature to use to the detriment of Pharaoh. And the angels answered, "O Lord of the world, all things are thine, and all are thine handiwork. Thou knowest well, and it is manifest before thee, that among all thy creatures there is none so quick as the wind that comes from under the throne of thy glory. And the Lord flew swiftly upon the wings of the wind." 44. The angels now advanced to support the Lord in his war against the Egyptians. Some brought swords, some arrows, and some spears, but God warded them off, saying, "Away, I need no help." 45. The arrows sped by Pharaoh against the children of Israel were answered by the Lord with fiery darts directed against the Egyptians. Pharaoh's army advanced with gleaming swords, and the Lord sent out lightnings that discomfited the Egyptians. Pharaoh hurled missiles, and the Lord discharged hailstones and coals of fire against him. With trumpets, sackbuts, and horns the Egyptians made their assault, and the Lord thundered in the heavens, and the Most High uttered his voice. In vain the Egyptians marched forward in orderly battle array. The Lord deprived them of their standards, and they were thrown into wild confusion. 46. To lure them into the water, the Lord caused fiery steeds to swim out upon the sea, and the horses of the Egyptians followed them, each with a rider upon his back. 47. Now the Egyptians tried to flee to their land in their chariots drawn by she-mules. As they had treated the children of Israel in a way contrary to nature, so the Lord treated them now. Not the she-mules pulled the chariots, but the chariots, though fire from heaven had consumed their wheels, dragged the men and the beasts into the water. The chariots were laden with silver, gold, and all sorts of costly things, which the river Pishon, as it flows forth from paradise, carries down into the Gihon. Thence the treasures float into the Red Sea, and by its waters they were tossed into the chariots of the Egyptians. It was the wish of Israel, and for this reason he caused the chariots to roll down into the sea, and the sea in turn to cast them out upon the opposite shore at the feet of the Israelites. 48. And the Lord fought against the Egyptians also with the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire. The former made the soil miry, and the mire was heated to the boiling point by the latter, so that the hoofs of the horses dropped from their feet, and they could not budge from the spot. 49. The anguish and the torture that God brought upon the Egyptians at the Red Sea caused them by far more excruciating pain than the plagues they had endured in Egypt, for at the sea he delivered them into the hands of the angels of destruction, who tormented them pitilessly. Had God not endowed the Egyptians with a double portion of strength, they could not have stood the pain a single moment. 50. The last judgment executed upon the Egyptians corresponded to the wicked designs harbored against Israel by the three different parties among them when they set out in pursuit of their liberated slaves. The first party had said, "We will bring Israel back to Egypt." The second had said, "We will strip them bare," and the third had said, "We will slay them all." The Lord blew upon the first with his breath, and the sea covered them. The second party he shook into the sea, and the third he pitched into the depths of the abyss. 51. He tossed them about as lentils are shaken up and down in a saucepan. The upper ones are made to fall to the bottom, the lower ones fly to the top. This was the experience of the Egyptians, and worse still, first the rider and his beast were whisked high up in the air, and then the two together, the rider sitting upon the back of the beast, were hurled to the bottom of the sea. 52. The Egyptians endeavored to save themselves from the sea by conjuring charms, for they were great magicians. Of the 10 measures of magic allotted to the world, they had taken 9 for themselves, and indeed they succeeded for the moment. They escaped out of the sea. But immediately the sea said to itself, "How can I allow the pledge entrusted to me by God to be taken from me?" And the water rushed after the Egyptians, and dragged back every man of them. Among the Egyptians were the 2 arch-magicians Jans and Jambres. They made wings for themselves with which they flew up to heaven. They also said to Pharaoh, "If God himself hath done this thing, we can effect naught. But if this work has been put into the hands of his angel, then we will shake his lieutenants into the sea." They proceeded at once to use their magic contrivances, whereby they dragged the angels down. These cried up to God, Save us, O God, for the waters are come in unto our soul. Speak thy word that will cause the magicians to drown in the mighty waters. And Gabriel cried to God, By the greatness of thy glory dash thy adversaries to pieces. Hereupon God bade Michael go and execute judgment upon the two magicians. The archangel seized hold of Jannes and Jambres by the locks of their hair, and he shattered them against the surface of the water. 53. Thus all the Egyptians were drowned, only one was spared, Pharaoh himself. When the children of Israel raised their voices to sing a song of praise to God at the shores of the Red Sea, Pharaoh heard it as he was jostled hither and thither by the billows, and he pointed his finger heavenward and called out, I believe in thee, O God, thou art righteous, and I and my people are wicked, and I acknowledge now that there is no God in the world beside thee. Without a moment's delay, Gabriel descended and laid an iron chain about Pharaoh's neck, and holding him securely, he addressed him thus, Villain, yesterday thou didst say, Who is the Lord that I should hearken to his voice? And now thou sayest, The Lord is righteous. With that he let him drop into the depths of the sea, and there he tortured him for 50 days, to make the power of God known to him. At the end of the time he installed him as king of the great city of Nineveh. And after the lapse of many centuries, when Jonah came to Nineveh, and prophesied the overthrow of the city on account of the evil done by the people, it was Pharaoh who, seized by fear and terror, covered himself with sackcloth and sat in ashes, and with his own mouth made proclamation and published this decree through Nineveh. Let neither man nor beast, herd nor flock taste anything, let them not feed nor drink water. For I know there is no God beside him in all the world, all his words are truth, and all his judgments are true and faithful. Pharaoh never died and never will die. He always stands at the portal of hell, and when the kings of the nations enter, he makes the power of God known to them at once in these words, O ye fools, why have ye not learnt knowledge from me? I am denied the Lord God, and he brought 10 plagues upon me, sent me to the bottom of the sea, kept me there for 50 days, released me then and brought me up. Thus I could not but believe in him. 54. God caused the Egyptians to be washed ashore in their death struggle. There were 4 reasons for this. The Israelites were not to say that as they themselves had escaped, so also the Egyptians had passed through the sea Drishad, only the latter had gone in another direction, and therefore had vanished from sight. The Egyptians, on the other hand, were not to think that the children of Israel had been drowned in the sea like themselves. In the third place, the Israelites were to have, as their booty, the silver, gold, and other precious things with which the Egyptians were decked. And finally, the Israelites were to enjoy the satisfaction of seeing their enemies suffer. With their finger they could point them out one by one, saying, This one way my taskmaster, who beat me with those fists of his at which the dogs are now gnawing, and yonder Egyptian, the dogs are chewing the feet with which he kicked me. As they lay on the shore in their last agony, they had to witness their own destruction and the victory of the Israelites, and they also beheld the suffering of their brethren that had remained behind in Egypt, for God poured out his punishment over the whole people, whether in Egypt or at the Red Sea. Before their corpses had been disposed of in this way, there had been a quarrel between the earth and the sea. The sea said to the earth, Take thy children unto thyself, and the earth retorted, Keep those whom thou hast slain. The sea hesitated to do as the earth bade, for fear that God would demand them back on the day of judgment, and the earth hesitated, because it remembered with terror the curse that had been pronounced upon it for having sucked up Abel's blood. Only after God swore an oath not to punish it for receiving the corpses of the Egyptians would the earth swallow them. 56.